Hey there, thank you so much for joining us today. Happy Tuesday to you. Good to see you as always. I'm Veronica Cruz. Let's take a look at the top stories that we're tracking for you right now.
Florida's Big Bend about to get hit with the most powerful hurricane they've seen in over a decade.
It is a Category 1 now. We expect it to intensify. We expect it to make landfall as possibly a Category 3.
Don't try to be a hero and ride it out. If they tell you to get out of there, please get out of there and do it now.
This is truly a tragic day for our campus community. I'm grieved to report that one of our faculty members was killed in this shooting.
Authorities say it's too soon to determine a motive.
Wasn't surprised and knew it was time to hunker down with the community and fight for our library.
The biggest concern with this library is the procurement and display of sexually explicit books.
If they don't want to read it or they don't want their children to read it, that is their choice. But if we remove them, we'd be preventing anybody from reading it.
Welcome to Scripps News Live. We begin this hour with mandatory evacuations along Florida's Gulf Coast as Hurricane Idalia intensifies. It's expected to make landfall tomorrow morning near Florida's Big Bend as a Category 3 storm. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis declaring a state of emergency in 46 counties, stretching from the Gulf Coast to the Atlantic. And he's warning people to take this storm seriously.
And it's where it's scheduled to hit along this Big Bend. And we've not really had a hurricane strike this area for a long, long time. I think you got to go back to the 1800s before you would see a path like this. And so those coastal areas there, have not necessarily been through this before. And I think that being safe is the appropriate thing, and erring on the side of caution is the appropriate thing.
5,500 National Guard members in Florida have been activated to help with the response. More than a dozen shelters are being opened, and it's possible that more could be added. The head of FEMA says they're prepared to help with whatever the state needs.
Our preparation, getting ready for this, has been to move our resources in. We have urban search and rescue teams that are on standby to support the state with any life-saving needs that they have. We have the Army Corps of Engineers ready to support any power generation missions that they might need. We have teams that are ready to go out into the community door to door to help understand what the impacts are after the storm passes and it's safe to do so. And so we will continue to move forces in to be ready to respond at Florida's request.
Our meteorologist Scott Withers is just north of Tampa for us, tracking the very latest.
The clock really ticking down to get all those storm preps finished before the hurricane arrives. People here waiting for hours to get their sandbags, like Fred here, finally getting his all done. The storm now in the southern Gulf of Mexico intensifying. It likely will be a Category 3 before it makes landfall here in Florida tomorrow morning. Thousands of cars snaking through Tampa neighborhoods, all waiting for sandbags. Brittany Bunch sitting in that line for 2.5 hours. Why do you need these so bad?
I'm in a flood zone, so need them for protecting the house from the hurricane.
She's not the only one worried about Idalia's wrath.
It's better to be prepared versus not prepared and have regrets.
Tampa is giving out tens of thousands of bags, and there are sandbagging stations in towns up and down Florida's Gulf Coast, giving out even more. Residents stocking up, swarming grocery stores, emptying the bread shelves, clearing out the eggs, snatching up the bottled water, drivers topping off their tanks, the gas man refilling the station as quickly as cars drain it. The Tampa airport closing at midnight, hoping to reopen Thursday after the storm blows through. Idalia is gaining strength, moving through the southern Gulf of Mexico after passing over Cuba, making a beeline for the Sunshine State. It's swirling through some of the warmest water on the planet, with sea surface temperatures off Tampa near 90 degrees. That heat energy driving it, intensifying the storm.
There really doesn't seem anything to prevent it from continuing to strengthen. And we've seen this before with something like Hurricane Michael that continued to gather strength.
Governor Ron DeSantis declaring a state of emergency for most Florida counties and deploying the National Guard. They're already prepping high-water rescue vehicles. Emergency officials warning the storm surge, like this one from Hurricane Ian last year, can be deadly. Mandatory evacuations in low-lying coastal counties already underway. Those not evacuating are hoping the sandbags will hold back up to 10 inches of rain and up to 5 feet of storm surge. You are concerned about flooding this time?
A little bit, yeah.
So are millions of Florida residents. So where is Idalia? Take a look at the satellite you can see spinning north of Cuba. Really going to intensify over those warm waters of the Gulf of Mexico, then going to head directly north. On our cone of uncertainty, you can see when it gets off the shore of Tampa, it's going to be a hurricane, and by the time it makes landfall, going to be a major hurricane, Category 3, 111 mile per hour sustained winds. And then when it moves inshore, we could still see hurricane force winds in Gainesville, Florida in the middle of the day tomorrow. This storm, not just wind and rain, but also the big concern, storm surge up to 11 feet near Cedar Key.
All right, Scotty, thank you for that. Now, Idalia isn't the only storm on the East Coast. Hurricane Franklin could bring dangerous rip currents and surf to the area as well. The eye of the storm will remain in the Atlantic, but rain bands from the Cat 4 storm will reach the East Coast and Bermuda. Maximum sustained winds have been clocking in at about 140 miles an hour, and it's expected to weaken today, but life-threatening currents remain a risk. 2 people were killed as the storm passed through the Dominican Republic. Thousands of people remain in the dark. In Vermont right now, flash flooding has devastated the region. In July, victims still waiting on federal assistance from the government, and homeowners and business owners have been telling our Chris Conti they're feeling forgotten.
There have been no shortage of natural disasters in this country this summer. Here in Vermont, they are learning just how long it can take to get FEMA funding and insurance money now that the floodwaters have subsided. The waters across Vermont have mostly returned to a trickle.
My stove and my refrigerator are currently in my bathroom.
But Amy Roger is still left floating in a river of anxiety.
The water came up from underneath through the floor. It's just a mess.
On July 10th, 7 feet of water invaded her Barry, Vermont home.
The hot water heater is floating over there.
We met the next day. Last time we were here, this was
underwater. Yeah.
Roger's $3,000 from FEMA for housing assistance ran out weeks ago. She can no longer afford to stay at a local motel, so this 47-year-old retired Marine is living out of her car. You're homeless.
I am. It's very hard when you're living out of your trunk and you're thinking, oh, what am I going to grab out of the suitcase today? Do I have any important meetings where I need to be on camera and look nice?
The water is gone, but her home needs $200,000 in repairs. Insurance will cover $150,000. Rogers was initially approved for a $25,000 small business loan, but then denied because she has insurance. None of this money, though, will cover the contents of her home.
I'm hoping I can even afford to keep it when it's all said and done, because I don't know what the flood insurance is going to do.
We're still waiting on this to be finished here.
A much taller order of business for Raul Fernandez.
This all was flooded all the way up to the door handle.
Oh, wow.
Here.
As the owner of Rabble Rouser Coffee in Montpelier, he has 12 employees depending on him to reopen.
Yeah, a lot of businesses are not gonna reopen.
Does that worry you?
It worries me because, then the town is not gonna have businesses.
In Vermont's capital, nearly 100 businesses suffered flood damage. Dozens remain closed. Many business owners told Scripps News they aren't eligible for FEMA funds and are worried about taking out small business loans because interest rates are so high right now. Do you think there's going to be enough money there for what you need to do?
That's a good question. I don't know. We don't know. So it's a let's see kind of situation.
A month and a half later, the cameras have mostly turned away. Merrick Zajac and Charlie Watts are still here.
Now that we're getting further away from the flood, the needs are shifting a little bit.
They work for the Parks and Trees Department and have been on this Montpelier street corner every day since July 10th, helping connect flood victims with resources.
And now it's a very, very big question mark phase about what happens now? How do you still live in that space? And how can we help as a community make that happen for each other?
Across the most rural state in the country, bridges and roads are still in need of repair.
It took a village and volunteers from it to save this town. Literally, they saved the town.
In Cabot, Vermont, where the town's main general store was nearly washed away, Select Board Chairman Michael Hogan isn't worried so much about roads as public safety.
So you need a whole new fire station?
We do.
This town of 1,700 had its fire station damaged in the floods. They're waiting to see if FEMA will provide funding to rebuild.
We're still getting the numbers in. We're still fixing things.
How much work have you been doing the last few weeks?
I was working probably 12 to 18-hour days consistently.
All of this brings us back to Amy Roger. With no place to stay, she's working her full-time job at a local college remotely from her front porch. Cell service is better out here. She spends her lunch and dinner breaks making home repairs. Do you think you're going to be anywhere near where you need to be to make the repairs in terms of insurance?
That's why I'm doing as much as I possibly can on my own.
The road ahead for this state will be a long one. But much like the mountains here, Vermonters are still standing strong. Chris Conti, Scripps News, Barrie, Vermont.
And you can find deeper dives on all of these stories and much more online. Feel free to check us out at scripsnews.com. Also on X, formerly known as Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and Threads. Coming up next on Scripps News Live, new details about the person investigators say killed an associate professor at UNC Chapel Hill. Plus, we'll take a closer look at efforts to protect people from becoming victims of hate crimes next. And a quick reminder right here, we'd like to hear from you. Give us a call on our Scripps News Viewer Hotline. That number is toll-free. It's 1-833-4-SCRIPPS. Feel free to share your comments and your story ideas. We'll be right back.
I'm Kirk Kaiser, and did you know the average funeral costs around $10,000? And if you don't have enough insurance to cover funeral costs, credit card debt, and other expenses, your family is going to get stuck with the bill. Don't let that happen. Call right now. And if you're over 50, you can get up to $30,000 in affordable life insurance, and your acceptance is guaranteed. That's right. If you're over 50, you can't be turned down for this insurance, regardless of your health. Plus, there's no medical exam and no health questions. Your rate will never go up. Your coverage will never go down. And rates start as low as $5 a week. Your coverage begins as soon as your application is received. Don't wait until it's too late.
Just call 800-760-7793.
Coverage is guaranteed regardless of your health and cannot be canceled without your approval. Don't leave your family with a huge bill for your funeral. With one fast and easy call, get up to $30,000 in affordable life insurance to help cover funeral expenses and credit card debt, and maybe even leave something for your kids and your grandkids. Remember, if you're over 50, you can't be turned down, regardless of your health. There's no medical exam and no health questions. Best of all, your rates start as low as $5 a week, and your rate will never increase. Nothing is more important than family. So don't leave them with a lot of bills to pay when you're gone. Don't leave your family with a lot of bills to pay for your funeral. Call right now. Acceptance is guaranteed. Call right now.
Call now. Call 800-760-7793. That's 800-760-7793.
Municipal bonds don't usually get the media coverage the stock market does. In fact, most people don't find them all that exciting. But if you're looking for the potential for consistent income that's federally tax-free, now is an excellent time to consider municipal bonds from Henyon & Walsh. If you have at least $10,000 to invest, call and talk with one of our bond specialists at 1-800-465-8465. We'll send you our exclusive bond guide, free, with details about how bonds can be an important part of your portfolio. Henyon & Walsh has specialized in fixed income and growth solutions for 30 years and offers high-quality municipal bonds from across the country. They provide the potential for regular income, are federally tax-free, and have historically low risk. Call today to request your free bond guide. 1-800-465-8465. That's 1-800-465-8465.
A UNC Chapel Hill grad student now charged with first-degree murder in a shooting on the school's campus. Investigators say the 34-year-old man killed an associate professor yesterday. The alleged shooter also is facing a charge of having a gun on educational property. The campus was locked down for hours while police searched for the person responsible. National correspondent Maura Siriani has the details.
Students attending the second week of classes at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill Monday, horrified by reports of an armed and dangerous person on campus.
This is truly a tragic day for our campus community.
Around 1 p.m., UNC police tweeting this warning along with a photo of what they called a person of interest. The situation unfolding inside Cottle Laboratories and prompting a campus-wide lockdown as authorities searched for the suspected gunman, a grad student who officers arrested about an hour and a half after the initial reports of gunfire came in.
I'm grieved to report that one of our faculty members was killed in this shooting. This loss is devastating, and the shooting damages the trust and safety that we so often take for granted in our campus community.
The campus lockdown ending at 4:14 p.m. Officials confirming the sole victim was a faculty member, but didn't immediately release the victim's name, pending family notification. Now the campus community of 20,000 undergraduate students and 12,000 graduate students, grieving a loss that hits close to home. A familiar scene, America once again on high alert. At UNC Chapel Hill, authorities say it's too soon to determine a motive. Authorities also not naming the relationship between the victim and the suspect. An investigation UNC Police Chief Brian James expects will take several weeks. Mara Siriani, Scripps News.
Well, today is the 241st day of 2023, and the number of violent incidents where at least 4 people were killed or injured far exceeds that. The Gun Violence Archive says nearly 500 shootings fit that criteria in the U.S. so far this year. That is the highest number in any year since at least 2013, when the group began tracking gun violence. There were more than 20 in the week that ended this past Sunday. And a newly published study out predicts that 1 in 14 gunshot victims will be shot again within a year. If you stretch the timeline to 5 years, the chance of being shot again rises to 1 in 8. And over an 8-year period, the chance of being shot again is 1 in 6. The Annals of Internal Medicine compiled the numbers after studying data from St. Louis hospitals from 2010 to 2019. So, given recent events, it's probably not much of a surprise that racist and bias-motivated crimes are on the rise in this country. National correspondent Clayton Sandell takes a closer look at how shooters can be stopped before hate and guns form a lethal combination.
It may be not much surprise to hear that racist and bias-motivated crimes are on the rise in this country. One of the biggest and toughest questions now, though, is how do you stop a potential shooter before hate and guns become a lethal combination? 2018, Pittsburgh, a gunman with a hatred of Jews kills 11 people at a synagogue. 2019, El Paso, 23 people are shot dead, the deadliest attack on Latinos in U.S. history. 2022, Buffalo, a white supremacist kills 10 at a supermarket. All the victims are black. Now Jacksonville, the latest community where hate and gun violence mixed into a recipe of death and tragedy.
A white gunman went on a shooting rampage at a store near a historically black university and killed 3 black individuals.
The federal government calls these white gunmen one of the most persistent and lethal threats, racially or ethnically motivated violent extremists who promote the superiority of the white race. According to the FBI, from 2020 to 2021, hate crimes jumped more than 11%. 60% of all hate crimes counted in 2021 were racially or ethnically motivated. Black people were most often the victims, more than 3,900 that year, and police say they were specifically targeted in Jacksonville.
There's no question about it. He hated blacks, and I think he hated just about everyone that wasn't white.
The threat of hate-motivated shooters means stores, schools, and synagogues like this one in Pennsylvania must constantly drill to prepare for the worst.
Break a mirror. You now have something sharp you can jam right in their eyes.
But groups working to prevent gun violence say there are better long-term solutions.
Many of them deal with making sure that if someone has the desire to act dangerously with a firearm, that there are barriers to them getting one.
The Brady Campaign to End Gun Violence wants a national law to prevent people convicted of hate or bias crimes from buying a gun. Right now, only 7 states have similar laws.
I know that there may be some who will take a look at this particular shooting and say, well, X gun law wouldn't have stopped this person, but it may stop the next person.
And advocates say it would help protect people like the ones in Jacksonville, murdered while doing the most ordinary things.
They were just black going shopping, which reminds every one of you, until we can fight all of this racism and anti-Semitism and homophobia and misogyny, till we get rid of all of it, all of us could be the next victim.
Clayton Sandell, Scripps News, Denver.
Well, the father of a man accused in a shooting last year outside of Chicago will stand trial for helping his son buy the gun used in that attack. Yesterday, a judge ruled against Robert Cremo's request to throw out the charges against him. Prosecutors say Cremo is partly to blame for the shooting at a 4th of July parade in Highland Park, which killed 7 people and injured more than a dozen others. And that's because Cremo signed his son's application to buy that firearm. Cremo is now set to go on trial on November 6th. A black lawmaker who was reinstated to the Tennessee State House after being expelled earlier this year by his Republican colleagues is once again drawing their anger. Representative Justin Jones was twice ruled out of order yesterday by the House Speaker, who then called a vote to discipline Jones. The result, 70-20 in favor, meant that Jones was barred from speaking on the House floor for the rest of the day. The chamber's 20 Democrats walked out in protest. Tennessee lawmakers are holding a special session mandated by the governor to consider gun safety reform. Coming up next on Scripps News Live, some federal student loan borrowers are on edge right now that a 3-year payment pause is coming to an end.
It's incredibly daunting, yeah, because I don't make nearly enough to pay those off like how they want me to.
We'll have the details on the resources available to help borrowers lower their monthly payments. That's next.
Attention anyone new to Medicare moving or losing coverage for any reason. You may qualify for a Medicare special enrollment period. Call now to see if you're eligible to enroll in a Medicare Part C plan with extra benefits. Did you know Medicare Part C is commonly called Medicare Advantage? If you qualify for an SEP, call now because there may be plans with extra benefits available that are not covered under Medicare Parts A and B. There are people who qualify for special enrollment but don't have a Medicare Advantage Part C plan, which covers everything in Part A and Part B, plus extra benefits not covered by original Medicare. Here's the good news. If you qualify, you can call now. We will check to see if there's a Medicare Advantage Part C plan available in your area with additional benefits. Call now to speak with a licensed insurance agent to see if you are eligible to enroll in a 2023 Medicare Advantage plan with extra benefits like dental coverage or savings on prescription medications. You don't get these extra benefits automatically, so call now for your free 2023 no-obligation Medicare benefits review. Just call 800-769-1530. 800-769-1530. Attention anyone new to Medicare moving or losing coverage for any reason. You may qualify for a Medicare special enrollment period. Call now to see if you're eligible to enroll in a Medicare Part C plan with extra benefits. Did you know Medicare Part C is commonly called Medicare Advantage? If you qualify for an SEP, call now because there may be plans with extra benefits available that are not covered under Medicare Parts A and B. There are people who qualify for special enrollment but don't have a Medicare Advantage Part C plan, which covers everything in Part A and Part B, plus extra benefits not covered by original Medicare. Here's the good news. If you qualify, you can call now. We will check to see if there's a Medicare Advantage Part C plan available in your area with additional benefits. Call now to speak with a licensed insurance agent to see if you are eligible to enroll in a 2023 Medicare Advantage plan with extra benefits like dental coverage or savings on prescription medications. You don't get these extra benefits automatically, so call now for your free 2023 no-obligation Medicare benefits review. Just call 800-769-1530. 800-769-1530.
Law enforcement calls it house stealing, when cyber thieves transfer the title to your home out of your name to take out fraudulent loans or even sell it. How do you protect yourself? Get Triple Lock Protection from Home Title Lock. Our Triple Lock Protection gives you 1, 24/7 monitoring, 2, urgent alerts of any title changes, and 3, title restoration help from our team of experts. Do you know if your title is safe? Check your title status now at HometitleLock.com.
For over 100 years, this light has shined. Through generations of Americans, this light carries on.
Reporting from Ukraine, Scripps News.
A beacon of the free American press. reporting the facts, telling the whole story. This light illuminates, it informs, and now shines even brighter. Scripps News.
Welcome back to Scripps News Live. I'm Veronica Cruz. So tens of millions of Americans will soon restart their federal student loan payments after a more than 3-year pause. Interest kicks back in on Friday, and payments are going to be due in October. Eleni Dow with Scripps News Phoenix has more on how you can prepare.
For some people, it's been more than 3 years since they paid back some of those student loans. And even though they've had that pause, some tell me they are still not ready for it.
Starting this Friday, interest will start accruing once again, and that will tack on to the price you currently owe.
It's incredibly daunting, yeah, because I don't make nearly enough to pay those off like how they want me to.
But the 3-year pandemic pause on federal student loan payments ends in just days, with student loan payments starting back up on October 1st.
I'm only nervous with the rise and how much everything is going to start costing and everything, so. Especially because, like, the jobs, I won't be paid more.
That's why planning for it is key.
What advice do you have out there for people who did not pay any of their student loans for the last 3 years and it's all about to start up again?
Well, it's time to start saving some money.
We spoke with the Valley financial advisor on what options are out there to help lower the cost of your payments. One is to refinance with what's called the Parent Plus loans, but be aware of the different interest rates.
You could potentially be paying more interest in the future on a Parent Plus loan than you are on a government loan.
You can also tie your payments to how much money you make if you're on the government loans.
If you are in a period of lower income, you can actually get your rates or your payments down lower.
You can also talk with your university's financial office to see if there are any scholarships that you can apply for.
Just trying to see maybe I just find a second job or something.
The U.S. government is also starting a repayment plan to help create an on-ramp to help borrowers slowly get back into the groove of paying their student loans again.
And that was Eleni Dow reporting there for us from Tempe, Arizona. The nation's 6th largest pharmacy chain is planning to seek bankruptcy protection. That's all according to the Wall Street Journal. Rite Aid now struggling under more than $3 billion of debt. The Philadelphia-based chain is also facing several lawsuits right now. Bankruptcy protection would give the 2,200-store chain the chance to consolidate thousands of claims from the opioid crisis and pause federal, state, and local cases against the retailer. I'm Veronica Cruz. Thank you so much for joining us today. For the audience leaving us right now, your local programming is up next. And don't forget, you can always check us out on scripsnews.com. Now, if you're staying with us, we have much more news headed your way right here on Scripps News Live, including a push to determine how hot is too hot for people to be working outside. We're going to take a closer look at why there are no national safety standards next.
Best thing I've ever done. That's what Freddie told me.
A person like me needed to get a reverse mortgage to change my life. It was the best thing I've ever done. And
really?
Yes, without a doubt.
Joanne said just about the same thing.
It absolutely is the best thing I ever did.
Jack put it a different way. To him, it was about having his grandkids over.
You want to have the kids over. You want to have the grandkids over. You want to have the family over. You want to say, this is my place.
Great people. Different people, that's for sure. And all of them had different reasons for getting a reverse mortgage. But you know what? They all felt the same about two things. They all loved their home, and they all wanted to stay in that home.
If you're 62 or older and own your home, find out how you could access your home's equity to give you cash now and when you need it in the future. A reverse mortgage could put more money in your pocket by eliminating your monthly mortgage payments. It could also pay off higher interest credit cards, medical costs, and give you some extra cash to help your retirement lifestyle.
I don't have any anxiety about money anymore. It allowed me to live in my home and not have to make payments.
A whole lot of families have gotten tax-free cash from a reverse mortgage loan for a better retirement.
I don't have to worry about a mortgage payment every month.
It's a good thing.
Call right now to receive your free no-obligation info kit. The kit will show you how you may get the cash you need using your home's equity as a reverse mortgage from AAG. Call 800-771-8082.
Look, why don't you call AAG? and find out what a reverse mortgage can mean for you.
Call AAG, the country's #1 reverse mortgage lender. Call 800-771-8082. That's 800-771-8082.
Welcome to Scripps News Live. Great to see you today. I'm Veronica Cruz. Well, this summer's extreme heat is highlighting a critical need for more workplace safety standards. Take, for example, Eugene Gates. He was a postal worker in Dallas who collapsed in a homeowner's yard while he was delivering mail. He was taken to the hospital where he later died. His wife believes that heat was a factor in his death. The temperature that day was 98 degrees Fahrenheit, but the feels like temperature, once you factor in the humidity, put it well over 110. Federal regulations don't exist to protect workers in dangerously high temperatures, but the Labor Department's Occupational Safety and Health Administration has begun to consider the issue. Strong industry opposition and bureaucracy could drag this process out for years. Advocates say outdoor workers can't wait because climate change is making extreme temperatures even more common. Public Citizen is a nonprofit group that advocates for workers and consumers, and a recent report found that heat exposure is responsible for 170,000 work-related injuries and as many as 2,000 deaths a year. Joining me now live is Julie Fulcher. She's an advocate for worker health and safety for Public Citizen. Julie, thank you so much for being with us today. I want to ask you where the onus lies in all of this. Which agency is responsible for overseeing these types of guidelines, and why haven't they put standards in place?
Well, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, or OSHA, is the agency that's responsible for health and safety in the workplace. And they are the ones who would create rules, standards about the kinds of things that workplaces need to do. For example, the amount of lead that can be in the workplace, or asbestos, or something along those lines. And then they are also the ones who enforce it. They would go out and inspect when there's been some sort of complaint and hold those individual employers accountable. They would be the ones who would create a heat standard, and unfortunately, we do not have one yet.
And we hear stories like Eugene Gates, who we were just talking about, the postal worker who passed away when it was almost 100 degrees outside. And we've seen one heat wave after another this summer. Tell us more about how this is impacting Americans who have to go to work outdoors and how bad the situation has become.
Well, one thing to understand is, having an extreme heat day is very difficult on the body, but a heat wave magnifies that tremendously. And that's because even during the day, if you're taking breaks and, trying to rest, you still are your body is fighting the heat all day long. So you need to have 8 to 12 hours of time in the in a cool space in order to recover completely and your body be in full force and ready to handle the heat the next day. Unfortunately, what a heat wave is defined by how low the temperatures get at night, and they do not go down. We've seen plenty of places this summer where the overnight low didn't go below 90 degrees. And so the inability of workers to cool down at night, they come back the next day and their body's even less able to handle the heat. And the day after that, it's even less able to handle the heat. So even if the high is the same every day, it gets more and more dangerous for individuals who are both working and not working to be outside and trying to do any kind of activity. So the heat wave issue is incredibly important. The heat waves we've had this summer have not only been more intense than we're used to, but a lot longer than we're used to. We've seen some really extremely long heat waves that are really unprecedented. And that's where so much of the additional danger comes from. And I will point out this is very difficult for outdoor workers, but we need to understand that when the heat is that high outdoors, it heats up the indoor spaces as well, and we have limited ability to keep them cool. And so this can have a dramatic effect on indoor workers as well, especially those who have limited climate control or who may be working, say, in the kitchen of a restaurant, who are around ovens. So this is a hard problem for everyone.
Yeah, it really is a difficult issue, and it definitely calls for a solution. I wanted to go ahead and circle back to Eugene Gates again, the postal worker who was in Dallas, because the governor of Texas has rescinded a policy that allowed water breaks for workers who are outdoors. There are states, though, at the same time that are creating their own standards that are working. Tell us more about these states and how these standards have been effective.
Sure. Well, the three states that have the most comprehensive heat standards are California, Oregon, and Washington. California's has been around the longest. They actually put their standard in place in 2005. It was in response to a farm worker who was picking grapes for 10 hours in extreme heat and unfortunately passed away as well. And that particular heat standard in California has been shown to reduce heat-related injuries by 30%. And so it is working. And actually right now they're working on improving the standard and adding more based on what we've learned since 2005. Oregon and Washington, as I said, have their standards. They haven't been in place as long. But they're good standards that are helping workers right now. Colorado also just created a heat standard, but it's specifically for agriculture workers and does not cover any other workers.
Now, we know that the Biden administration tried to put guidelines in place 2 years ago now, but we have yet to see anything happen. Why do you think there's been such opposition to creating a nationwide standard?
Well, the opposition comes from industry leaders and individual employers. And oftentimes there's a misconception that any kind of standard or regulation that's out there is going to be burdensome for employers and cost them lots of money. In this case, it's just not true. When we look at the issue of heat stress, what we find is it's already costing employers a great deal of money to fail to address the safety concerns. You're dealing with things like absenteeism, turnover, overtime that needs to be paid when a worker is unable to be at work. You have increases in your workers' compensation premiums, damage to different kinds of property when there's an accident or injury as a result of heat stress. And negligence lawsuits. There are a lot of things that the employers are already paying out of pocket. And so many of the things that can be done are so simple and cheap and easy, like making cool water consistently available to workers and giving them frequent breaks in a cool location. Those will go a long way to keeping workers protected.
Julie Fulcher is an advocate for worker health and safety for a public citizen. Julie, thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate it. So if there's anything worse than unrelenting triple-digit summer highs, it's living through it without home air conditioning. Landlords are not required to provide AC for renters in Florida. Dave Bowman with Scripps News West Palm Beach says efforts are underway to change all of that.
Under Florida law, landlords are required to provide running water. Landlords are required to provide electricity. Landlords have to provide adequate parking, and landlords have to provide trash pickup. Landlords are required to provide heat. But here in a state where most people have suffered through several 100-degree plus feels like temperatures, landlords are not required to provide air conditioning. Why is it not mandatory?
That is the greatest question that we're trying to figure out. What is keeping the legislator from mandating landlords from giving quality air conditioning? But we're going to go to Tallahassee and we're going to fix that problem.
It's a problem in hot weather for renters with no air conditioning or those whose AC breaks down. That happened last summer to this West Palm Beach family of 7. They sweltered through an entire month with no air conditioning. Liz Joseph worried most about his 6-month-old granddaughter as the family waited for repairs.
That's why we try to let them know it's serious. They have to do something.
But because of Florida law, the landlord was under no obligation to fix the AC right away. Former state representative Michael Greco of Miami sponsored a bill during the last session to mandate air conditioning for tenants. The bill died in committee.
Well, I think that we're seeing the change in our weather and we're feeling it more than ever. But I think this has to be a bipartisan effort.
State Representative Edmonds says this summer may change some lawmakers' minds. Representative Edmonds says he's close to finding a Republican co-sponsor. And he hopes that when lawmakers return to Tallahassee in January, where the average temperature is in the 50s, that they remember the scorching days of midsummer. Dave Bowman for Scripps News.
Coming up next on Scripps News Live, the future of a small county's public library will soon be in voters' hands.
Our whole existence has been, making fun things and supplement things, not the heavy duty of the possibility of what are you going to do to help save the library.
We're going to take a closer look at the debate that jeopardizes this valuable resource next.
An inflammatory podcast and blog targeting minorities.
He made people feel very uncomfortable.
Openly ran by a former service officer to Bahrain and current employee of the State Department.
He may well have his right to say what he wants, but not to get paid for it by the taxpayers.
But after years of complaints from coworkers and even Congress, is the extreme podcaster a potential risk to national security?
Should State Department employees be afraid?
Wednesday at 8/7 Central, only on Scripps News Tonight.
If you're living with diabetes, this is the sound that could change your life.
Great news for people living with diabetes. Now you can wear a continuous glucose monitor and eliminate routine finger sticks. The days of repeated, painful finger sticks are over.
Call 800-820-9953.
If you use insulin daily to manage your condition, a continuous glucose monitor could help you control your diabetes and reduce or eliminate those painful finger sticks. If you have Medicare or private insurance, US Med can deliver a CGM system right to your door. And if you qualify, there may be little or no cost to you. Shipping is free and will even bill your insurer directly. Call now to get your continuous glucose monitoring system so you can take control of your diabetes and get back to enjoying life.
Call 800-820-9953. That's 800-820-9953.
My employees and I are excited to announce it's our 20th anniversary, and to celebrate, we're bringing you a limited edition MyPillow. The Giza Elegance MyPillow is made with the most amazing cotton, 2-inch pipe gusset, comes in 4 custom loft levels, and it's machine washable and dryable.
When I got MyPillow, I'm asleep almost immediately. I stay asleep at night and I wake up more well-rested in the morning.
My patented fill adjusts to your exact individual needs and helps keep your neck supported and aligned. That's why we've been around for 20 years, because MyPillow works.
Go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get your limited edition 20th anniversary MyPillow queen size. Retails for $69.98, now only $19.98. That's right, only $19.98.
With my 60-day money-back guarantee, you have nothing to lose. Sleep well, America!
It's all about putting in the work. I prepare the same way for the long haul. Tono gives you all those stats to be able to say, how can I continue to get better? And it starts to challenge you, like, okay, you've done this, but now let's challenge you. Let's do this now. It's all about just training your mind, training your body, training your spirit to be as great as you can.
Tono.
be your strongest.
Hey.
Hey, I'm inside the bank.
What?
I don't have much time. Where's the $500?
I said drop your bank and get Dave. The banking app.
What?
There's an easier way.
Oh, she going to jail.
You can get up to $500 in 5 minutes or less when you download Dave.
There's a better way to begin your mornings.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Morning Rush.
Get the stories that will shape each day,
Definitely a lot of folks talking about this.
so you can get on with yours. Morning Rush, weekday mornings starting at 7, 6 Central, only on Scripps News.
The debate over whether to ban certain books in schools is intensifying nationwide. A growing number of districts are removing books that address race and LGBTQ+ themes. And now a public library in one small county is facing calls to remove the content. National correspondent Vanessa Machania explains how the library's resistance is jeopardizing its future.
Welcome to Columbia County, Washington. It's got a population of about 4,000 people, but this tiny pocket of the Pacific Northwest is getting national attention right now because it could be the very first county in the United States to close a library over controversial book titles. As an outsider driving through its golden hills of wheat, it's easy to understand why the people of Columbia County, Washington want to protect it.
There's always somebody that will reach out and help you in this community if you ask, or sometimes even if you don't ask.
Deb Fortner is a wheat farmer and has lived here her whole life. She says she's one of the many people hoping to protect Columbia County, but she represents one of two fiercely opposed groups going about doing it.
Wasn't surprised and knew it was time to hunker down with the community and fight for our library.
At the center of the debate is the Dayton Memorial Library, the only one in the county. It's a place where, in an area with spotty service and long drives, with access to the internet and other information materials, it's also the only free gathering space in the region. One side, Deb's side, wants to save the library. The other side wants the library to be dissolved. Both sides believe their will is for the good of the county. The divide is over controversial book titles, mainly LGBTQ+ themes with what some consider to be sexually explicit descriptions. The Dissolve the Library side claims all they want is for the books to be moved out of the downstairs children and young adult areas, books they refer to as, quote, pornography.
If it's going to go to that point where they are demanding that one side only be represented, then I'm going to say, well, we have an issue there.
Lorna Barth is the president of the Friends of Dayton Library, an organization that was created to help the library fundraise, and now it's the group that's fighting to save it.
Our whole existence has been, making fun things and supplement things, not the heavy duty of the possibility of what are you going to do to help save the library? We don't know.
So upstairs is where we moved all of the young adult nonfiction.
The library said it did move some books upstairs, but not all, and it hasn't removed any book outright from its collection. The Dissolve side said those moves are not enough. Several back and forths in public meetings and a growing list of titles later, a petition to dissolve the library was passed with 163 signatures. In November, it will come down to a county ballot measure when 1,007 people will be eligible to vote to save or dissolve the library.
If they don't want to read it or they don't want their children to read it, that is their choice, and I'm all for that. Do as you please. But if we removed them, we'd be preventing anybody from reading it, and I don't think that's our place at all.
According to the American Library Association, or ALA, requests to censor library books hit a 21-year high last year at 1,050, a 70% increase from 2021. No one from the Dissolve the Library side wanted to sit down with me in person, saying that other journalists did not represent their side fairly. One man, however, Seth Murdoch, agreed to answer questions over email. He told me, the biggest concern with this library is the procurement and display of sexually explicit books written for children and youth. This story reflects conversations happening in communities across the country. The debate not only about certain books, but the role of public and school libraries and who should control what books they have on their shelves. As Columbia County's library garners national attention as the first in the country to be potentially closed over this issue, I asked local residents what they want Americans to take away from their story.
Contact your own libraries. See if they're hearing anything. Be aware of what's happening. I guess that's my warning. This is real. They could take it away.
Murdoch also answered the same question, writing, I would simply suggest that people look into the institutions that they directly fund, to take responsibility of curating what is essentially theirs, to not be ashamed of the values and beliefs that they hold, and to stand behind them. For Deb Fortner, as she watches this play out in her beloved community, she hopes that people across the country stay active and get informed.
It doesn't matter how you vote, just vote educated. Don't vote based on these emotions that you hear spinning around. Go do the research, take the time. It's messy, it's painful. Educate yourself.
Vanessa Bishania, Scripps News, Columbia County, Washington.
Straight ahead on Scripps News Live, how two communities are coming together to donate supplies to Maui as Lahaina begins its long journey to recovery. That's next.
I've been putting off getting life insurance, and I'm not getting any younger.
Have you been thinking about getting a life insurance plan but just keep putting it off? Was that a yes? Then this message is for you. I'm David Denowitz, and I know the importance of life insurance. And that's why I'm here to tell you it's not too late to get the coverage you need.
If you're between the ages of 45 and 85, you can get a policy with a benefit of up to $25,000 and rates available at $5 a week. The phone lines are now open. Just call 800-354-6059.
And your acceptance is guaranteed.
I have a pre-existing medical condition. Is my acceptance guaranteed?
Yes.
Can I get accepted without a medical exam?
Yes. If you're between 45 and 85, you can't be turned down for this guaranteed acceptance life insurance regardless of your health. Plus, there's no medical exam and no health questions. And rates start at just $5 a week. Remember, if you're between 45 and 85, you can't be turned down regardless of your health. Nothing's more important than family. So call now, pick up the phone, and get guaranteed acceptance life insurance today.
Just call 800-354-6059.
I'm 72 and on a fixed income. Is my acceptance guaranteed?
Yes, your acceptance is guaranteed and your rate can never go up for any reason. You can't be turned down regardless of your health. There's just one simple question. Are you between 45 and 85? If you answered yes, don't wait another minute. Call now.
The call is absolutely free and there is no obligation to enroll. Just call 800-354-6059. That's 800-354-6059.
The Omaha Steaks Anniversary Sale is here. Right now, we're offering 50% off site-wide. The only number that hasn't changed is our 100% guarantee that you'll love every bite. And if you've never tried Omaha Steaks, save an extra $30 with promo code FIRSTTIME. Visit omahasteaks.com/TV today. Why wouldn't you want to save 50% on 100% satisfaction? Just a little bargain hunting wisdom from Omaha Steaks.
You're watching Scripps News, streaming everywhere, totally free. Want to see more? Grab the app on your favorite streaming platform or go to scripsnews.com to find every way to watch. Go to scripsnews.com now to find out more.
Hawaiian Electric taking responsibility for at least one of the fires on Maui, but it's blaming county firefighters for a second, more destructive one. The utility says its power lines were de-energized for more than 6 hours before the second fire started, and they claim that firefighters battled the first fire, contained it, and then left the scene. Maui County sued the company, claiming negligence. Now, people across the country are doing their part to help everyone who's been affected by these fires in Hawaii. Maui has already received several truckloads full of supplies, but there is a need for more. Spencer Soisher with Scripps News San Diego shows us why these efforts aren't stopping anytime soon.
It wasn't even a second thought that we have to somehow mobilize the San Diego community.
Once again, Alimale McFarland and the API initiative are getting to work.
They said that our first run that we did is now depleted.
McFarland moved to San Diego from Hawaii about 15 years ago. Now she's putting out a second call, collecting items for more help back home.
I'm gonna freaking keep fighting for this. I don't care how long it takes.
The group they are working with in Maui told them exactly what they need most. Things like diapers, baby food, and water.
Cases of water, because we know the water is contaminated, but they're telling us what they need.
Now today they're filling up this 16-foot truck, but before this one, they filled up 2 21-footers and a 26-footer that went on Alaska Airlines. San Diegans are showing up once again. For some, it's about putting themselves in the shoes of people in Lahaina.
We both went through the 2003 and 2007 fires up in Ramona, so we know what it's like.
People walk up to us, they're sharing their story, just like Laura, who just dropped off a truckload of supplies. She said she was just in Lahaina, and she feels connected and wants to help.
The drive today might have ended at 2 o'clock. But the love for the people in Maui and the help from San Diego isn't ending anytime soon.
As long as it takes, we are going to do the drives because, you know, this isn't going to be an issue that's resolved in 30 days.
And that was Spencer Soysher reporting for us from San Diego. In the meantime, students in Florida are proving that compassion knows no age. They're digging into their piggy banks to help teachers in Maui affected by the wildfires. Sean Daly with Scripps News Tampa shows us how their small change has been making a big difference.
Dear friends in Maui, I'm a student here at Roland Park in Tampa, Florida. I'm a 5th grader. We are raising money for you guys. I know how hard it's been, but we are here for you. I believe in you. I know that you can get through this.
We encourage our kids to come to school and say, hey, I heard about this. How can we help? What can we do?
Roland Park K-8 Magnet School in Tampa is an IB program, service learning at its very best, showing compassion locally and globally. Roland Park students have raised more than $4,000, most of it in coins from piggy banks, for teachers in Hawaii struggling due to the Maui wildfires. The Roland Park students will also be sending hundreds of letters of love and support, including a bunch from these 5th graders.
The people of Maui, you have been so strong during this time. We will be sending prayers to all of you. Hi, Maui. It's me, your friend Nico. And I can see you're unstoppable.
I know you're sad, but your family will keep you up no matter what.
That's awesome. Harrison right here. You're a superstar. You're a nice guy. I'm Sean Daly for Scripps News.
They are superstars. That is just so adorable. So even after Maui rebuilds, the challenges won't be over. Coming up at 2:30 Eastern, we're going to dig into the impact this disaster could have on the insurance industry in Hawaii. Could companies decide that the risk is too high to offer coverage and then pull out of the state? Sean Kent, Senior Vice President of First Service Insurance, will join Lauren Magrino. Again, that is straight ahead at 2:30 p.m. Eastern. Thank you so much for watching Scripps News Live. I'm Veronica Cruz. For the audience leaving us right now, your local programming is up next. Don't forget, you can always check us out on scripsnews.com. Now, if you're staying with us, we have much more news headed your way right here on Scripps News Live, including a lack of funding for FEMA. Why the agency expects they're going to be running out of money before the peak of hurricane season. That's next.
Attention all seniors. You can now get up to $50,000 for your funeral and other final expenses, including your credit card debt, with no medical exam, starting at less than $1 a day.
Oh, honey, your dad and I can't stop talking about this baby that's coming.
We've also been thinking a lot about our future, and no matter what, we want to make sure we aren't leaving you and your family with any of our debts.
Just last week, we read that the price of a funeral can be $8,000 or more.
Wow, Jeff and I definitely would not have the money to pay for that.
And that's just a funeral. But you don't have to worry. We called, and with one phone call, we were eligible for $50,000 for our funeral and final expenses.
Well, that's great, but don't you need to take a medical exam to qualify? You and Mom have some health issues.
No, there's no medical exam, and we were able to get coverage right over the phone.
And our rates can never be increased, our benefits can never be decreased, and our coverage can never be canceled.
I'm so glad you made that call.
Don't leave loved ones with your debt. Call 800-293-5789 now and see if you qualify for up to $50,000 for your funeral and other final expenses, starting at less than $1 a day. There's no medical exam, and you can be approved even if you have pre-existing health conditions. Your rates can never be increased, your benefits can never be decreased, and your coverage can never be canceled. There's no obligation. Call 800-293-5789 now. There's no paperwork, no hidden fees, and no waiting periods. And you can start coverage right over the phone, starting at less than $1 a day. Call 800-293-5789. That's 800-293-5789. 800-293-5789.
Hey there, thank you so much for joining us on this Tuesday. I'm Veronica Cruz. Welcome to Scripps News Live. We begin this hour in Florida, where the clock is ticking for people along the upper half of the Gulf Coast. Idalia intensifying from a tropical storm into a hurricane this morning, and it's expected to get even stronger as it passes through the extremely warm waters in the Gulf. Hurricane Idalia headed for landfall somewhere between Tampa and Tallahassee tomorrow. National correspondent John Moan joining us now live from Gainesville, Florida. John, you just visited a coastal town there. What are folks saying? What is the reaction right now, and how are people preparing?
Well, let's point out to how people are preparing. We are in Gainesville. It's a bit inland from where we were this morning, but look at this line of traffic. This is the line for sandbags here in Gainesville, and people are obviously taking this very seriously and heeding the warnings. We were over in Cedar Key. That is on the coast. Hurricane Idalia could make landfall there. They are expecting in that area storm surges from 8 to 12 feet, maybe even higher. And folks in Cedar Key weren't messing around. As you can see, residents and business owners of Cedar Key are paying attention to the storm's path, heeding the warnings, boarding up, packing up, and evacuating.
It's a very small community. Everyone knows everyone. So this is when it's extra scary, because I really hope everyone's okay right now.
Carol Carlin owns a souvenir shop right on the docks, fearful the hurricane storm surge will inundate everything.
There's still a lot left, but anything that we can shove in that truck, we're going to try to get out of here so we can salvage. You know, we don't know what we're going to come back to.
She's bagging up everything and getting out.
We're just hoping everyone does the right thing.
The same goes for Leah Gore.
We just opened in February.
She runs an artist collective closer into town.
Getting everything out of here, hopefully so that the moisture and whatever happens doesn't destroy it. And, you know, the furniture and the flooring and the painting, that can all be redone, but the artwork, it can't be replaced.
In 2016, Hurricane Hermine damaged much of Cedar Key. There's even still marks in some of the buildings of where the flooding happened.
There's some nervousness for sure. I think more this morning than has been in the prior days.
And again, people lining up here to fill up their sandbags. There are some low-lying parts of Gainesville, Florida, even though we are a bit inland from the Big Bend area where Hurricane Idalia is expected to make landfall. We also do expect a lot of downed trees because of those hurricane force winds. Veronica?
Yeah, but looking behind you, John, it's good to see that folks there are heeding the warning, looking at all of that traffic as people try to evacuate the area. John Moan, live in Gainesville, Florida. John, thanks. So Hillsborough County, Florida authorities are ordering people in low-lying areas and mobile home parks to evacuate as well. Larissa Scott with Scripps News takes a look at how people are preparing as well.
Officials continue to be concerned about flooding and say anyone who lives in an area that's prone to flooding should get out now. A mandatory evacuation order has been issued for people living in Zone A in Hillsborough County. This includes mobile home parks and anyone living in low-lying areas. There's also a river flood warning in Hillsborough County that officials are watching closely. We've talked to people over the past few days as they've made preparations for the storm.
I mean, you just never know. Anytime that storm is coming our way, we always have to be prepared. I always have to just, hope for the best and pray for the best and just don't know what to expect.
Many people tell us they're not taking any chances.
A lot of times people see hurricanes coming and use it as an excuse to party or take off work and everything else. But after seeing what happened with Ian, it just shows the effects that it can have and the mass destruction it can have.
Some say they're being more cautious this year after last year's hurricane season.
A friend of mine had a good friend who lost her house in Hurricane Ian, and she only knew she lost it because she saw an overhead thing on the news, and where her property was gone. And I don't want to be in that situation.
And again, emergency officials are encouraging people to check out their county websites to find their evacuation zones to see if they need to leave. Reporting in Apollo Beach, I'm Larissa Scott.
FEMA's administrator says that many people think that the biggest threat from a hurricane is the wind, but there are other issues as well.
But the number one killer in all of these storms is water. Whether it's the storm surge that's going to happen at the coast or the excessive rainfall that might happen inland that causes urban flash flooding, the water is the thing that we are finding that is killing more people in these storms than the wind.
FEMA is ready to send in resources once Idalia makes landfall. Now, as we approach the peak of hurricane season, FEMA is admitting that it is running out of money. This year alone, 15 weather-related disasters have each exceeded more than $1 billion in damages. Our Deputy Political Director, Joe St. George, has the story.
Well, there are looming questions here in Washington about the federal government's response to hurricanes this hurricane season, and that's because FEMA is apparently running out of cash. For weeks, the administrator of FEMA has warned that the funding could run out by mid-September. That coincides with peak hurricane season. The reason for the cash shortage, the sheer number of disasters. As of August 8th, there have been 15 natural disasters with losses totaling over $1 billion. That doesn't even include the recent wildfires in Maui. President Biden has requested over $10 billion from Congress to replenish the fund, but Congress remains on recess. As far as any actual impacts on Florida or any other community impacted by a hurricane in the coming days and weeks, this lack of funding won't mean FEMA doesn't respond. They're still expected to act, but they may be doing so with a deficit. The lack of funding may also impact communities that suffered a disaster several months ago, since they aren't in need of immediate resources. This lack of funding for FEMA is expected to intensify in the month of September. Remember, Congress will be debating funding the government past September 30th throughout most of next month. It remains unclear how much money FEMA will ultimately get from Congress. Joe St. George, Scripps News, Washington.
In the meantime, President Biden and FEMA have set aside $3 billion to make communities less vulnerable to natural disasters. Now, for the latest on Idalia, you want to visit us online. ScripsNews.com is a place. You can also follow us on social media at X, formerly known as Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and Threads. Coming up next on Scripps News Live, the alleged gunman in the shooting on the campus of UNC Chapel Hill has been charged. We'll have the details straight ahead. Also, we're sharing reaction from the Jacksonville community as it works to heal days after a deadly shooting in a Dollar General. And don't forget, you can always count on Scripps News for all of your news throughout the primetime hours as well, beginning at 6 p.m. Eastern.
Municipal bonds don't usually get the media coverage the stock market does. In fact, most people don't find them all that exciting. But if you're looking for the potential for consistent income that's federally tax-free, now is an excellent time to consider municipal bonds from Henyon & Walsh. If you have at least $10,000 to invest, call and talk with one of our bond specialists at 1-800-465-8465. We'll send you our exclusive bond guide, free, with details about how bonds can be an important part of your portfolio. Henyon & Walsh has specialized in fixed income and growth solutions for 30 years and offers high-quality municipal bonds from across the country. They provide the potential for regular income, are federally tax-free, and have historically low risk. Call today to request your free bond guide. 1-800-465-8465. That's 1-800-465-8465.
I used to think all doctors were the same. Then I switched to Oak Street Health. You see, this isn't your typical doctor's office. Instead of waiting around for me to get sick, they focus on keeping me healthy and feeling good. Hey, still got it.
Zion. No sugar, right?
And the best part, everyone at Oak Street Health is experienced with people my age.
At Oak Street Health, we specialize in caring for older adults like you with a focus on keeping you healthy. So don't wait. Call today.
Zion, we're ready for you.
Here people get to know me the old-fashioned way.
By listening.
This guy takes all the notes, so my doctor is all eyes on me, and I'm never rushed out.
Ready to go?
We get to know you better with longer appointment times, including same-day and next-day appointments.
Everyone gets their own personal care team. Hey, whether it's doctors, nurses, social workers, mental health support, even someone to help me understand my Medicare benefits. They all work together for me, myself, and I. Not to mention a 24/7 patient support line.
We customized a plan for him, and we can do the same for you.
Getting the care you need has never been easier because our team members work together to handle all your healthcare needs.
And you get all this with no extra cost. They even gather all your medical records and health history. So switching to their doctors is easy. And you can keep living your life your way.
At Oak Street Health, we specialize in caring for older adults like you. Call 800-967-2157 to schedule a visit and see why we are the only primary care provider to carry the AARP name. Oak Street Health.
A UNC Chapel Hill grad now charged with first-degree murder in a shooting on the school's campus. Investigators say a 34-year-old man killed an associate professor yesterday. The alleged shooter is also facing a charge of having a gun on educational property. The campus was locked down for hours while police searched for the person responsible. National correspondent Morris Sirianni has the details.
Students attending the second week of classes at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill Monday, horrified by reports of an armed and dangerous person on campus.
This is truly a tragic day for our campus community.
Around 1 p.m., UNC police tweeting this warning along with a photo of what they called a person of interest. The situation unfolding inside Cottle Laboratories and prompting a campus-wide lockdown as authorities searched for the suspected gunman, a grad student who officers arrested about an hour and a half after the initial reports of gunfire came in.
I'm grieved to report that one of our faculty members was killed in this shooting. This loss is devastating, and the shooting damages the trust and safety that we so often take for granted in our campus community.
The campus lockdown ending at 4:14 p.m. Officials confirming the sole victim was a faculty member, but didn't immediately release the victim's name, pending family notification. Now the campus community of 20,000 undergraduate students and 12,000 graduate students, grieving a loss that hits close to home. A familiar scene, America once again on high alert. At UNC Chapel Hill, authorities say it's too soon to determine a motive. Authorities also not naming the relationship between the victim and the suspect. An investigation UNC Police Chief Brian James expects will take several weeks. Mara Sirianni, Scripps News.
The Jacksonville community is calling for change as it mourns the death of 3 black people killed in a racist shooting. A white man who'd written racist rants expressing his hatred for African Americans carried out the attack at a Dollar General store on Saturday. Justice correspondent Jamal Andres is in Jacksonville. He has the reaction from the community and the victims' families.
As the community of Jacksonville, Florida reels from a horrific racist shooting at a Dollar General store, local, state, and federal officials are vowing to bring justice for the 3 people who lost their lives.
How do you explain to her where her father is? This is what this is about.
The FBI has launched a civil rights investigation into the deadly attack. The Justice Department is also investigating the rampage as a hate crime and an act of racially motivated violent extremism.
Plainly put, this shooting was racially motivated and he hated black people. There's no place for hate in our community, and this is not Jacksonville.
The 21-year-old gunman is accused of leaving racist writings and using racial slurs before the attack. Police say he entered the Dollar General just after 1 p.m. on Saturday wearing a bulletproof vest, armed with a swastika emblazoned assault rifle, shooting and killing 52-year-old Angela Michelle Carr, 19-year-old Anult Joseph Laguerre Jr., and 29-year-old Jared Gallion. The gunman then took his own life. Prior to the shooting, the gunman was turned away from the campus of a nearby HBCU, Edward Waters University, when he refused to identify himself to on-campus security. Jacksonville Sheriff T.K. Waters tells reporters authorities are committed to transparency, and they want the public to know exactly what happened that day. And amid the fresh sting of grief and fear, the community of Jacksonville begins to process the hate and tragedy unfolding at their doorsteps.
It does shine a very bright light on what we're dealing with in our community, in our state, and in our country. And I think light is the best disinfectant.
Jamal Andrus, Scripps News.
Jacksonville's Mayor Donna Deegan joined Morning Rush today to share her message to the community as it works to heal.
Unfortunately, it is not so shocking because we definitely have seen a gun violence problem here, as we have in many areas around the country. But also, this particular community has unfortunately been just devastated by so many incidents that have occurred in this community. So I raced to the scene as soon as we had word that this was happening, just to let people know that I was there and that I wanted them to know that I grieved along with them and that I would stand with them against hate of anyone in our community, specifically our Black community that has been targeted so many times. So I absolutely stand with this community. It is all of us that are harmed when these things happen. And we just need to make sure that the message is sent loud and clear that hate will not be tolerated in Jacksonville.
And obviously you lead up Florida's most populous city. About 1 million people live there, 30% of whom are African American. So it hits home with a large swath of your constituency, in addition to making national news. We have learned some things, as always, in these cases. There were red flags, as there always seem to be. This young man, obviously deeply troubled and deeply racist. There was a domestic violence incident back in 2016. A year later, there was an involuntary psychiatric evaluation. Was there anything law enforcement or family perhaps could have done before things got violent and deadly?
Well, listen, I think that this shows the serious problems within our system right now. That young man bought those guns legally. There was absolutely nothing the legal system could have done. He was Baker acted, which means he was psychologically evaluated when he was 15 years old. He was 21 at the time of this shooting. The family did not give him permission to have guns, from my understanding, and yet he was able to obtain them legally. So I think there is a problem with the availability of these types of semi-automatic weapons in our state. There certainly is a problem with some of our policies. And I think we need to look at those. And I think we also need to look at the rhetoric that we sometimes use and look inward to see what we can do to stop feeding the hate that is in some people's hearts. Racism is certainly a disease, and that is the disease that we know that this young man certainly had.
Yeah, and on that topic, Mayor Deegan, you were elected just this year. You were the first woman to hold the role of mayor of Jacksonville, and you flipped a red seat, and one of your priorities was gun control. So it's awful that you're dealing with this so early into your tenure, but does this give you a bigger push to enact policies that you had been prioritizing on the campaign trail, and do you see a path forward for that?
Well, frankly, my priority was unity, and I think it's hard to have unity when you've got a whole segment of your population that feels as if they are under attack. As I'm sure you know, in the state of Florida, I don't have the ability to enact any sort of gun reform locally. The state has made it clear that that is not something that local municipalities can do. I can use my voice. I can certainly talk about what I see as common sense. We have seen permitless carry pass in our state, and what we do know data-wise is that in states that have permitless carry laws, there is a 15% increase in violent gun activity. So these are simply things that I will continue to echo. What I have control over in my city is what we tolerate, what we will do to protect our community. And frankly, I'll just continue to try to echo that unity message that we have to all speak with one voice, that this is not acceptable in our community and we will not allow it in Jacksonville.
And that was the mayor of Jacksonville, Donna Deegan, on Morning Rush earlier. In about 10 minutes, our coverage of the tragedy continues. We're going to take a closer look at the toll racist attacks have on mental health. Again, that's at 1:30 p.m. Eastern. The Federal Aviation Administration investigating allegations that nearly 5,000 pilots may have falsified medical records. We're going to share what it all could mean. And we'd like to hear from you. Give us a call on our Scripps News Bureau hotline toll free. That number is on your screen right now. It's 1-833-4-SCRIPPS. Feel free to share your comments and your story ideas.
An inflammatory podcast and blog targeting minorities.
He made people feel very uncomfortable.
Openly ran by a former service officer to Bahrain and current employee of the State Department.
He may well have his right to say what he wants, but not to get paid for it by the taxpayers.
But after years of complaints from coworkers and even Congress, is the extreme podcaster a potential risk to national security?
Should State Department employees be afraid?
Wednesday at 8/7 Central, only on Scripps News Tonight.
They get it. They know how it works. And more importantly, it works for them.
I don't have any anxiety about money anymore.
I don't have to worry about a mortgage payment every month.
It allowed me to live in my home and not have to pay payments.
Linda, Dinah, Joanne, very different people, but they do have a couple of things in common. They love their home and they know their stuff. They all talked about the counseling they got so they knew how a reverse mortgage worked and how it could be a real financial solution for their retirement.
If you're 62 or older and own your home, find out how you could access your home's equity to give you cash now and when you need it in the future. A reverse mortgage could put more money in your pocket by eliminating your monthly mortgage payments, paying off higher interest credit cards, and covering medical costs.
A person like me needed to get a reverse mortgage to change my life. It was the best thing I've ever done. And
Really?
Yes, without a doubt.
Just like these folks, AAG can show you how a reverse mortgage loan uses your built-up home equity to give you tax-free cash. They also know they can pay it back whenever it works for them.
It's a good thing. Call right now to receive your free no-obligation info kit. The kit will show you how you could get the cash you need using your home's equity as a reverse mortgage from AAG. Call 800-431-5319.
I've been with AAG for quite a while now. I think they're the real deal. So look, why don't you get the facts like these folks did and see if a reverse mortgage could work for you?
Call AAG, the country's #1 reverse mortgage lender. Call 800-431-5319. That's 800-431-5319.
Hey.
Hey, I'm inside the bank. Where's the $500?
What?
I don't have much time. Where's the $500?
I said drop your bank, not rob your bank.
What?
I said drop your bank and get Dave, the banking app.
Yeah, I thought this was a lot of work for $500.
You think?
I mean, I would love it if you could come get me.
Oh, no. Oh, she going to jail.
Hello?
There's an easier way you can get up to $500 in 5 minutes or less when you download Dave.
For over 100 years, this light has shined. Through generations of Americans, this light carries on.
Reporting from Ukraine, Scripps News.
A beacon of the free American press. Reporting the facts, telling the whole story. This light illuminates, it informs, and now shines even brighter. Scripps News.
23 minutes after the hour now, we're keeping a close eye on Hurricane Idalia. You see it there. It's scheduled to make landfall tomorrow, somewhere between Tampa and Tallahassee in the morning as a Category 3 storm. We're keeping an eye on it for you. In other news at this hour, Amazon shoppers now have to spend more to get free shipping. As of Monday, non-Prime members now have to buy at least $35 worth of stuff to qualify for it. Before, it was only $25. The e-commerce giant says that it hopes the new minimum will drive more people to sign up for Prime memberships. Prime members still enjoy free shipping on all of their orders. And American Airlines will have to pay a $4.1 million fine for keeping passengers on planes for too long. It's a record fine for violating tarmac rules. The Department of Transportation cited 43 American flights from 2018 to 2020 where passengers were stuck on planes for more than 3 hours. The worst was in 2020 when passengers sat on the tarmac in San Antonio for about 6 hours. And we're learning more right now about the Federal Aviation Administration's investigation of nearly 5,000 pilots. The agency is saying that pilots may have falsified medical records tied to serious health conditions. The Washington Post is saying that all the pilots are military veterans. National correspondent James Packard spoke with a pilot about how this investigation is impacting the airline industry.
The FAA says thousands of commercial pilots have withheld medical conditions for which they're receiving VA disability benefits. Some of them now grounded, posing a potentially critical threat to aviation safety.
I can't say why somebody would do that. I thought I didn't have to, or well, each case is going to be looked at individually.
The Washington Post was first to report the FAA cross-referenced its own database on pilot medical certifications with that of the Department of Veterans Affairs on who was claiming disability benefits for a condition that would prohibit them from flying without the proper clearance. They found 5,000 cases of pilots not reporting to the FAA a condition they claimed with the VA. Of those, 600 are licensed to fly for a passenger airline.
There are stories of pilots who've had discomfort in certain areas and they haven't been diagnosed, but the first thing that hits them isn't like, hey, am I short for this world? It's like, if I get into a doctor and it's this, I'm not going to be able to fly. And it's not for the love of flight. Sometimes it's about putting food on the table.
Dennis Tager is a pilot for American Airlines and a spokesperson for its pilots union. He said this story is indicative of a broader issue with the FAA's medical review process.
When you hear the stories of pilots waiting 12 and 18 months just to get back after they've been diagnosed as healed, be it physically or mentally, that's a problem that lies right at the FAA steps.
Amid a pilot shortage that's straining the FAA and airlines, every aviator counts.
We're seeing frequency changes occurring at airports where when originally they would use 5 flights, they're reducing that to 3 flights. We are seeing some regionals being pulled out of some communities.
The FAA says 60 pilots have been instructed to stop flying while the agency reviews their medical records. Others can safely continue to operate planes while the review goes on, according to the Washington Post. But the review's focus on veteran pilots alone raises questions about whether they are being unfairly targeted.
Because of the database, because you served your country and perhaps had some injury, be it physical or mental, right on up to PTSD, while you served and put your life on the line for this country, now our country is going into that database and saying, hey, these two things don't add up. We got a problem. I'm a vet. I got a problem with that. It's not an endorsement of taking on clear decisions in violation of what we're supposed to do.
James Packard, Scripps News, Los Angeles.
Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Veronica Cruz. Now, for the audience leaving us, your local programming is up next. And don't forget, you can always check us out on scripsnews.com online. Now, if you are staying with us, we have plenty of news headed your way right here on Scripps News Live, including how a tragedy can have a widespread impact on mental health, even if it didn't happen where you live. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Kirk Kaiser, and did you know the average funeral costs around $10,000? And if you don't have enough insurance to cover funeral costs, credit card debt, and other expenses, your family is going to get stuck with the bill. Don't let that happen. Call right now, and if you're over 50, you can get up to $30,000 in affordable life insurance, and your acceptance is guaranteed. That's right, if you're over 50, you can't be turned down for this insurance, regardless of your health. Plus, there's no medical exam and no health questions. Your rate will never go up. Your coverage will never go down. And rates start as low as $5 a week. Your coverage begins as soon as your application is received. Don't wait until it's too late.
Just call 800-760-7793.
Coverage is guaranteed regardless of your health and cannot be canceled without your approval. Don't leave your family with a huge bill for your funeral. With one fast and easy call, get up to $30,000 in affordable life insurance to help cover funeral expenses and credit card debt, and maybe even leave something for your kids and your grandkids. Remember, if you're over 50, you can't be turned down, regardless of your health. There's no medical exam and no health questions. Best of all, your rates start as low as $5 a week, and your rate will never increase. Nothing is more important than family. So don't leave them with a lot of bills to pay when you're gone. Don't leave your family with a lot of bills to pay for your funeral. Call right now. Acceptance is guaranteed. Call right now.
Call now. Call 800-760-7793. That's 800-760-7793.
Welcome to Scripps News Live. It's great to be with you on this Tuesday. I'm Veronica Cruz. Let's get you caught up on the day's top stories right now. Days after a deadly racist shooting at a Dollar General in Jacksonville, that community is not alone. Small community tragedies can have a big impact on the entire nation, and the toll can be especially felt when the attack targets certain groups. Scripps national correspondent Amber Strong explains the widespread impact on mental health.
Another community suffering after a racist gunman took the lives of 3 people at a Jacksonville Dollar General.
There's no question about it. He hated blacks, and I think he hated just about everyone that wasn't white.
The tragedy eerily similar to the racist murders of 10 black people at a Buffalo grocery store in 2022.
This is an absolute racist hate crime. It will be prosecuted as a hate crime. This is someone who has hate in their heart, soul, and mind.
Howard University psychiatrist Flavia D'Souza says there's a sense of collective grieving after events like these.
Shock. They might be in denial, they might experience rage, and as they're going through the grief cycle, they may go back and forth between stages.
After the Buffalo shooting, mental health professionals like Melissa Spikes Archer began to assess residents' individual needs.
We were in the crowd with the community in front of Tops, praying, crying, just being there, an ear for them to express themselves.
She says due to the racist nature of the crime and the raw trauma and fear, residents in the majority black community were more comfortable opening up to people with shared experiences.
People want to see people that look like them so that they don't have to explain certain things and they feel like you get me. And so they share more. That therapeutic relationship becomes actually therapeutic.
There's also a sort of trickle-down occurrence that experts say can happen after events like this, where the incident contributes to a larger racial trauma, something that can happen on a micro level from a single personal experience or a macro level from years of traumatic events impacting the same group.
The reality is that things like this have been happening in many communities for a long time, and communities have been living in a traumatized way. Really for a long time.
Reliving those experiences that you've maybe seen others experience on television, or maybe you've encountered some derogatory language yourself, that can lead you to worry about those interactions. It can make you be afraid. It can make you have sleep difficulties.
Experts like Dr. Erlanger Turner say one key to healing could lie in the power of community and activism, stating in the Journal of Black Psychology that, quote, Black activism can potentially contribute to empowerment and positive mental health outcomes. Whether you're directly impacted or feeling the effects from watching the events unfold over and over, he recommends seeking help. You can do that online via sites like the National Alliance on Mental Illness or findtreatment.gov. Amber Strong, Scripps News.
Yesterday marked 60 years since the iconic March on Washington called for racial harmony and equity. Over the past 6 decades, one woman has been a constant. Virginia Ali is the matriarch of Ben's Chili Bowl, a Washington institution, and she remembers the young preacher who paid a visit on the eve of the march and then kept coming back. She spoke with our Del Walters about her views on America's progress since that historic day.
King came here.
Yes.
How many times?
Oh my goodness, a few times during 1963. I don't recall having met him prior to 1963. I might have, but in 1963, when the Civil Rights Movement was in a big part of the country at the time, and you're seeing it on TV every day. And then Dr. King comes to town and informs me that he's planning to do a march here to bring emphasis to the injustices of black people. As a matter of fact, he told me on one of those visits that he had met with President Kennedy. He and a few of his comrades, I think A. Philip Randolph and maybe John Lewis, and whom else, I don't remember, but he told me that he met with President Kennedy and told President Kennedy that he wanted to bring a large group of people here to bring emphasis on the injustices of black people. And he said, President Kennedy said, we want to help, we understand, but we don't think it's a good idea for you to bring a large group of people, because if there's an incident, it will set your movement back, Dr. King. And Dr. King responded with, there won't be an incident. He brought 250,000 people here that day. No incident. Just a beautiful, inspiring day that made us all know that change is going to come.
The customers, they came here. Did they know that it was such a big event?
Prior to the march? No, not at all. None of us expected that kind of crowd. And the variety of people, all walks of life, Hollywood represented, all colors, all ages. And when Ben and I were there, I mean, it was a sea of people, just people, sea of people. So it was definitely, and after we all listened to the programs, Mahalia Jackson singing and all those wonderful speeches, and then last, that final I Have a Dream speech, change has got to come, yeah.
You can answer this question better than anybody else. Are we better off?
We've made some improvements. And we've got a ways to go yet. But we've made some improvements, yeah.
Dr. King, when he came to the restaurant, entourage, lots of people around him, vain, how would you describe him?
Just a very dignified, quiet, calm, strong person. Easy, I think I felt like he was comfortable in any setting. Very, very responsive to people. You know, when he would come in, I wanted to spend time with him, but so did so many other people. And he did his best to accommodate folks. He did his best to greet and meet and have a little conversation with everybody, at least to shake hands. He was never tired of that. Reminded me, you know who else was like that? Man, Barry.
There is a sense that that one speech changed everything. And so much emphasis is placed on the speech, they forget about the movement. What was the movement really like?
The movement was all about equality and jobs at the time. Equality and jobs and making this a better world, not just for black people, but for poor people in general. And it was equality. Treating people the way you want to be treated. That's what I call it. Be kind to each other. Learn to live and understand each other, accept each other. He was all about nonviolence, which, because of his strength in that field of being nonviolent, people wanted to help and people wanted to follow him. We were inspired by him.
You know what's changed? This restaurant. When I first started coming here, almost 40 years ago,
yeah,
everybody was black.
Yeah.
They're not anymore.
Well, no, but if someone asked me, I had a reporter from, I don't remember where, which country, But he said to me one day, sometime back now, what did it feel like when white people started to come? I said, well, white people would always come, not in the numbers we have today, because we were not the prejudiced one. We accepted everybody. I could go to the Howard Theater to see James Brown or Dick Gregory perform. There would be white people there as well.
And Dave Clark.
Yeah.
Dave thought he was black.
Yeah.
Did anybody tell him he wasn't?
On his bicycle.
Yeah, on his bicycle. Bernie's always been here.
Bernie's always been here. And Children's Hospital was right behind us.
Right.
For a long time. When we opened, Children's Hospital was there. So we had the benefit of serving the doctors on staff, the nurses, the visiting people coming to bring their children. And they were from all walks of life and all colors. But today we have people coming from all over the world and all over the world. I have last week, 39 people from Taiwan.
Isn't this kind of what he said at the end of the speech? All God's children,
yes,
black children and white children, standing up and singing the words of that old Negro spiritual, free at last. Isn't this kind of what happens in this restaurant every day?
It's been happening in this restaurant from day one, 1958.
Well, today marks 18 years since Hurricane Katrina slammed into the Gulf Coast, packing powerful winds before leaving a path of destruction. The storm is the costliest in the country. It caused nearly $194 billion in damage and claimed the lives of nearly 1,400 people. The images of people stranded on rooftops, waiting on bridges for help, and packed inside of the Superdome are still vivid 18 years later. Two of the biggest lessons officials learned since Katrina are to be prepared and to have a plan in action. Louisiana Congressman Troy Carter also wants residents to keep in mind as hurricane season begins to ramp up.
We know the devastation it left behind. We know the pain that it caused. We know the lives that we lost. We know the properties that were damaged. May we take this time to remember and prepare as we go forward. Yes, we're now in the midst of hurricane season. Pay attention. Be ready. Listen to the plans from your federal, local, and state agencies. Let us never forget the pain of these past storms and always be ready.
Today also marks 2 years since Hurricane Ida made landfall on the Louisiana coast. Ida was a monstrous Category 4 storm. It displaced many. Hawaiian Electric is taking responsibility for at least one of the fires on Maui right now, but it blames county firefighters for a second, more destructive fire. The utility says its power lines were de-energized for more than 6 hours before the second fire began, and they claim that firefighters battled the first fire, contained it, and then left the scene. Maui County is suing the company, claiming negligence. Even after Maui rebuilds, they are still facing a long list of challenges. Coming up in the next hour of Scripps News Live, we're going to dig into the impact this disaster could have on the insurance industry in Hawaii. Could companies decide the risk is too high and pull out of the state? We'll explore at 2:30 p.m. Eastern. And don't forget, the people of Maui still need your help along the way. Monetary donations will be crucial for survivors struggling to piece their lives back together. Scripps News is supporting those relief efforts through the Scripps Maui Wildfire Relief Campaign. All you have to do is scan the QR code on the bottom of your screen right there if you would like to help. Coming up next on Scripps News Live, we're going to explain how a New York food pantry is prioritizing faith to serve Muslim families in need. Also, why some researchers say expanding prescription programs could ease the demand for food and medical assistance. And a reminder right here, you can always find our stories and much more online. Check us out at scripsnews.com. Also on X, formerly known as Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and Threads.
This is an important message for the millions of Medicare recipients covered under your state's Medicaid. Medicare and Medicaid give you some benefits, but there are Medicare Advantage plans available with even more benefits and savings. Call the number on your screen and get a free Medicare benefits review to see if you qualify. A licensed insurance agent is standing by to take your call.
Just call 800-981-2945 now.
Some Medicare Advantage plans may include dental, vision, and hearing coverage, $0 copays for prescription drugs, and an annual allowance to spend on groceries, rent, and utilities for those who qualify. Plus, some plans may include lots of doctors and hospitals, all in-network. You don't get these benefits automatically. Call now and get a free, no-obligation benefits review.
Just call 800-981-2945 now. That's 800-981-2945.
Plus, certain beneficiaries may qualify based on income verification to enroll in their state-based Medicare savings program. That can add up to $164 back to their Social Security check every month. Call the number on your screen to see if you qualify for this state-based program. A licensed insurance agent is standing by to take your call.
Just call 800-981-2945 now.
Medicare and Medicaid give you some benefits, but there are Medicare Advantage plans available with even more benefits and savings. Plus, some plans may include lots of doctors and hospitals, all in-network. Plans may include dental, vision, and hearing coverage, $0 copays for prescription drugs, and an annual allowance to spend on groceries, rent, and utilities for those who qualify. Plus, you may be eligible for a plan with free transportation. Remember, you don't get these benefits automatically. Call now and get a free, no-obligation benefits review.
Just call 800-981-2945 now. That's 800-981-2945.
It's so easy. Get out your own way. It's so easy when you break free. Easy peasy done. It's so easy. It's just so easy.
This is Sydney.
Hello.
Look at the space between her head and her shoulder. It's a square. What Sydney needs is a pillow that properly supports her neck and keeps her spine in alignment. Hence, the Pillow Cube. Buy the Pillow Cube today.
Sunday nights on In Real Life, Scripps News journalists take you off the grid.
We were just a bunch of kids with a camera.
And to the heart of the story. In Real Life, Sunday at 8/7 Central, only on Scripps News.
Chemical and manufacturing company 3M will pay the U.S. military a $6 billion settlement. It all stems from several lawsuits from service members who say they experienced hearing loss after using 3M's combat earplugs. Service members claim the products have a defective design, which limits their ability to protect troops' ears from close-range guns and other loud noises. 3M didn't admit liability under the settlement and maintains that its earplugs are safe. A new study out suggests produce prescription programs could improve your health and address food insecurities. Participants in the study received a prescription that included a monthly stipend to buy more fruits and vegetables. Data shows patients ate about 30% more produce every day after receiving this prescription. Researchers say the shift led to improved chronic health conditions such as diabetes and heart disease, and the program decreased food insecurity by a third. So as inflation tightens its grip on wallets, food pantries have been opening their doors to help families in need. Now, most of their items are typical staples, but what if your religion requires something that's not so typical? National correspondent Matt Pearl takes us to a pantry where keeping the faith has been a priority.
At their most lofty and grand, the statues that represent America represent our ideals. What we aim to be, what we proclaim to be. Reality puts those ideals to the test.
You here? You have to wait.
The community food pantry at Highbridge is one of nearly 20 food pantries in the Bronx, New York.
I need a number over here.
It's a few blocks from Yankee Stadium, a few miles from the Manhattan skyline, and it's a largely immigrant community that has long relied on what pantries provide.
And it's not even 10 o'clock yet.
Especially this pantry.
This is why we need the pantry.
One of a handful in the country that serves halal meat.
I am the person who started this madness.
Nura Amatullah runs the Muslim Women's Institute for Research and Development.
Buenos dias, good morning.
The food pantry is her creation.
Assalamu alaikum.
And while most who use her pantry don't share her faith,
She deserves it.
she knows its importance to those who do.
In taking a life, right, in terms of an animal for food, we acknowledge the sacredness of life.
So if someone who is Muslim cannot access halal meat,
It is a problem.
Get on like 3. Access is one problem. Access combined with all the ripples of a global pandemic create a bigger one.
Health disparity, economic disparity, access. COVID just ripped that open.
2.5 years since the pandemic began, its impact continues to be felt by people of faith. Early on, more than twice as many Americans said they felt less connected to their congregations. Even now, as restrictions have mostly lifted, a third of U.S. adults who used to attend services regularly have yet to return.
Did you pick up Kobani meat?
For America's nearly 3.5 million Muslims, inflation and supply chain issues have sent prices soaring for an essential component of their faith.
Almost 250% increase, which is significant. No one's salary increases that much.
Normally open 2 days a week, this summer the pantry added a third day of service specifically for children.
Louise!
On this day, when their community arrives, pantry volunteers pull bricks of lamb from the freezer.
Okay.
They supply for some a fundamental need.
We were going to continue to serve.
service is a part of faith.
Yeah. Yes.
Faith, service, community. They can be difficult to maintain for any number of real-world reasons. But for so many, the ability to embrace them all is a cornerstone of this country. It imbues our most powerful monuments. It's a reminder of what we all desire.
The way you get to being a better person is to see the divine presence in everyone else.
In the Bronx, New York, I'm Matt Pearl.
Coming up next on Scripps News Live, artists channeling their talent to breathe new life into their community.
We just wanted to represent Lorraine, just basically return the pride back into this park.
We'll hear more about their mission to create a safe space for kids. That's next.
If you have this, and you get this, you could end up with this. Unexpected out-of-pocket costs, which for those on Medicare or soon to be, is a good reason to take charge of your health care. So consider this, an AARP Medicare Supplement Insurance Plan from United Healthcare. Why? Because Medicare alone doesn't pay for everything. And what it doesn't pay for, like deductibles and copays, could really add up, even thousands of dollars a year. Medicare supplement plans help by paying some of what Medicare doesn't, and making your out-of-pocket costs a lot more predictable. Call United Healthcare today and ask for your free decision guide. Learn more about plan options and rates to fit your needs. Now, if you like this, greater freedom, you'll love that Medicare supplement plans have no networks and no referrals needed. See any doctor, any specialist, anywhere in the U.S., as long as they accept Medicare patients. These types of plans also give you more flexibility when traveling in the U.S. Your plan goes with you, anywhere you go in the country. Even better, these are the only plans of their kind, endorsed by AARP. Call United Healthcare today for your free decision guide. So if you have this and want less out-of-pocket costs and more peace of mind, consider adding this, an AARP Medicare Supplement Plan. Take charge of your health care today. Just use this or this to call United Healthcare about an AARP Medicare Supplement Plan.
One way to avoid expensive car repair bills is to be a race car driver. The other is endurance.
Endurance saved me more than $7,000.
Without endurance, breakdowns can cost thousands. With endurance, you're covered.
Endurance covers nearly every car on the road. Plus,
you pick the mechanic you trust.
act now for $300 off any plan, plus a year of elite benefits and a 30-day money-back guarantee. Call 1-855-588-2580 now.
Get customizable furniture at joybird.com that complements your art, your green thumb, or just you. Save up to 45% off select bestsellers. Shop an unparalleled selection at joybird.com.
For over 100 years, this light has shined. A beacon of the free American press.
Reporting from Ukraine, Scripps News.
And now, this light shines even brighter. Scripps News.
Quick reminder right here, we'd love to hear from you. Give us a call on our Scripps News viewer hotline. That number is on your screen right now. You can call us toll free. The number is 1-833-4-SCRIPPS. Feel free to share your comments and your story ideas. So a group of artists is building stronger communities one stroke at a time. Mike Holden with Scripps News Cleveland shows us how it's transforming a park into a safe place for kids to hang out.
So that's the baby blue, right? You want to do the circle real quick?
For West LA-based artist Zur, each day he embraces the motto, life is a great big canvas.
It's all a blessing at the end of the day, like to be able to be here and spread love through your art.
And at the Oakwood Park on the south side of Lorain, it's taken on that of a literal meaning.
Basketball courts are the biggest canvases I could find.
His next masterpiece is a park centerpiece with a special blue twist. Lorain native Reynaldo Contreras perfected the design and got the green light.
Pour it in a line right here.
Or in this case, the blue light from city officials to make it happen.
We're putting like an L in the middle of the court. It's like the Lorain L. You can see it on our seal of Lorain.
Contreras, who owns Relic Clothing 3, partnered with founder of nonprofit The Grind League, Darius Winborn, to do something special for the kids and the community. With a little teamwork and a whole lot of blue paint, they transformed this basketball court and took it to the next level.
We just wanted to represent Lorain, you know, just basically return the pride back into this park.
I dug deep to find some very talented entrepreneurs who are also artists who have a history and a belonging.
Got the image?
It has been a labor of love for months.
Smack that right here and then right here.
They worked together, laying down precise measurements.
14.8. All right, let's do the 6-foot radius circle.
Outlining the design in chalk and pouring gallon after gallon of paint, mixing with sand critical so players and residents don't slip.
I wanted to bring people together in more positive engagements, but also I wanted to welcome their families.
Here, grab this corner.
With each stroke of a roller and push of a brush, it's clear how important something so simple can be for the community's development.
And the guys say it boils down to investing in our youth, and the skills learned right here on the basketball court can apply to multiple facets of life.
Winborn says mentorship means everything, and this court will be a critical jumping point for generations to come.
We wanted it to promote community, but also what could be in the flow of where this city is going, which is a flow of upliftment.
I just hope that it can just bring a sense of light to those kids and inspire those kids to want to do art.
And the guys say the goal moving forward is to work on additional basketball courts across Northeast Ohio and beautify those as well.
I'm Mike Holden for Scripps News.
And it looks great. Well done. I'm Veronica Cruz. Thank you so much for joining us today. For the audience leaving us right now, your local programming is up next. Don't forget, you can always check us out on scripsnews.com. Now, if you're staying with us, we have much more news headed your way right here on Scripps News Live. Don't forget, I'll be back with you at 3 p.m. Eastern, and Lauren Magarino is up next. She has more of the day's top stories after a quick break. We'll be right back.